This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome to session 5 of our EC Payroll. So yesterday we have covered a little bit of, started with compound employee API. What is the compound employee API? What is the purpose of that compound employee API? As I have mentioned, it is basically to extract employee data from the employee central, and it is based on a SOAP protocol. Also, we have seen the high level API XML schema of it. Okay, so we'll be going more related to configuration part of it today. Okay, so basically what happens, the path whichever I mentioned here, this is my compound.
Niladri,
Yeah,
your voice is breaking once in a while.
is it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's at your end or my end. Could you just give me a second? I'll just switch my
No.
Wi-Fi. I will not switch it off, but on my laptop, I'll connect to some other Wi-Fi. Just 1 second.
Okay, sure.
This conference will now be recorded.
So as I have mentioned, compound employee API, it will be responsible for reading your employee master data, and it will be replicating the same thing in your employee central payroll. Okay? So, but for the, as I was mentioning in the earlier session, the standard replication program which SAP offers, it doesn't have directly the filter option. Suppose you are having a staggered go live, or if you would like to replicate for a particular country or a particular legal entity. Okay, so in those cases, you can't directly use those replication programs. So for that reason, we need this query segment. So then we have to configure some query, and it is not like your SQL query or nothing like that. It's very simple. So we have to just comma separate the value. Okay, so I'll be explaining you later on. So suppose it, out of 5 legal entities, if you are implementing for 3 legal entities, so then only those maintain those legal entity in the query segment via your comma separated value. Okay, so that I'll be explaining today. And this is your configuration path where exactly you will be configuring your compound employee API query. That is the personal management, then integration settings for SF Employee Central, then your point-to-point replication, then configure employee API, compound employee API query. So this is your path, personal management, then your integration settings, then your configuration of point-to-point replication. The first one, the first thing first, okay, that is the configure compound employee API query. Okay, so this is the thing you'll be seeing. Okay, so we'll follow the same sequence, the path whichever there in the SPRO, not the implementation guide path we'll be following. But anyway, after completion of this, actually, whatever the path SAP has, SAP Learning Hub or your SAP implementation guide, they have provided to us, that path will be again seeing, revisiting those topics, and it will be at that point of time, as we are going detail at present. Okay, so at that time, I'll just telling that this we have covered. Okay, so that is the approach we are following for this session. Okay, so we'll go sequentially. Yeah. You have any question?
No. It's good. Just towards the end of the session, let me
Yeah.
know where in that 3,000 page PDF, which page number this slide is, and also within the implementation guide where these query and compound employee API and all those details are.
Okay, sure. Actually, this is a part of your point-to-point replication. There are another steps which is there. There is because this code is already there, but actually I'm following a different approach here. In this session. Okay, so at that point of time, this topic will again come. Okay, later on. Okay, so that slides I will definitely mention. This is one of the steps in your ECP. There are two types of configuration. One in a set of activities you have to do in the EC side. There are set of activities you have to perform in the ECP side. It is one of those steps. Okay, but from the completion point of view, actually, in this session, I followed a different approach. Okay, so I think it will be more helpful to logically. Okay, so let's see. So this will be how your, once you go to the inside this configuration, this is how the typical query configuration will be looking like. There are two set of configuration. One is your the first folder you can see in the dialog structure. Okay, that is your query configuration. Here, what are the different terminology I'll be explaining you. Okay, so what is the configuration name, what is company and all. Second set of configuration is the query segments. Okay, so first of all, you have to configure this query configuration. Okay, so it is very simple. Here the config name, whenever you are doing the first entry, you have to enter this new entry section. Okay, then you will be filling this all these entries. Okay, so as I was mentioning, the configuration which I am showing, it is a big bang go live for one country. So for that reason, it is very simple. I have not put any company filter. I have not put any employee class or your pay group filter. Okay. So for that reason, it is looks like very simple. The configuration name is like, what is the configuration name? So it is a very standard name to understand, which you can understand. Okay. Like simply employee replication, you can name it. And the config ID also are maintained like EMP underscore REP. So now I'll be explaining each and every terminology. So config ID means identify, which will be basically you identify the specify compound employee API query configure. So it will be like EMP underscore REP I have maintained it. Okay. So you can just put some meaningful name here like this. Okay. So once you have done that, then the
This
second,
goes inside the replication program, right? This config ID.
yes. Exactly whatever config ID you are mentioning. So previously we have seen one screen, right? The
Yeah, I
point to
remember
point
that with some three fields.
Yes, point-to-point replication process, which I have discussed in one of the session. You
No,
can
you
see
don't
this
have
one.
to go there. Just was
Yeah.
mentioning that config
Okay.
ID goes into the, yeah, that there it is.
Yeah, here it is. So this is your employee replication from EC to EC payroll. So here we are mentioning configuration ID, right? So from where that drop-down value is coming, it is actually configured inside your compound employee API query. Okay, so that is the thing. Okay, so here this is the config ID which you are maintaining here. The next one is very simple. Company means your company ID you will be mentioning. As I was mentioning, if you're not mentioning anything, it will consider every whatever company ID you are using for that. It will taking everything. Otherwise, if you are having a, as I was mentioning, if you are having a staggered go live, okay. So out of five company, you are mentioning say only three company in this particular month. Okay, you are going live with three company code in this month of June 2020. Then you just maintain those company here by comma separated value. Okay, so that is the company. Same is applicable for country as well. Okay, suppose if you're implementing for multiple countries, so you just mention those by comma separated value. Okay, employee class is nothing but your employee group. Okay, so for this, ideally people implement, if you're implementing for entire population, do not have to mention anything. Okay, it will take all the employee classes which belong to that particular legal entity or company. Okay, so that is the thing. And similarly for companies, there are different options you do have to exercise, but that is not mandatory to use depending upon the scenario. Okay, you will be using. Okay, as I was mentioning. Okay, so this is the company config name and config ID. Okay, so country, as I was mentioning, it is also your comma separated value can present it. Okay, whatever the country you are implementing. Employee class is nothing but your employee group. Okay, employee group and employee, those things will be maintained if it is required. And compensation pay group, which I was mentioning, it is like your it is represented by your external code. Whenever you are using in your employee central, in employee central is basically a pay group. Okay, so if it is really required, then you have to maintain it. Otherwise, because why we are using this, as I was mentioning, in the main program of the point-to-point replication, we do not have those filtering options. Okay, so to exercise that option, we have to configure this compound employee API query. So in this query configuration only, we maintain those filter here. So whatever filter you would like to maintain, you have to maintain it here. Okay,
So if you
so that
want more than one value, you separate them with comma, or what's the format? For
it is.
example, employee class, you want more employee classes, or companies, more companies. How do you do that?
So we do that by comma separated value. Suppose here I was mentioning the country, right? So country means you can't put any value, right? There are some specific ISO value for each country, right?
Yeah.
Okay, suppose for this example I have given is Saudi Arabia. Okay, SAU I have put it here. Okay, suppose
Mhm.
I want any more country, I'll just put a comma after SAU. Then that particular country's three digit that ISO code I have to put it. Okay, and same approach you have to follow. Accord means offer all of this entity like company, employee class, your compensation pay group. Okay, so that is we follow this kind of configuration here. So all these are actually free text value, right? There's no drop down values for this. You can't select anything here. So for that reason, you have to put it right, comma separated value for all the configuration that you see, whether it is a company or it's employee class. Okay, all of this support actually a comma separated value. Okay, comma separated value. Okay, so you can put it so that it will filter automatically. Okay, this is how this compound employee API understands multiple selections. Okay, so this is the thing. And the target system actually basically it will be specified the current logical system with the client. Okay, so as I was mentioning, so current logical system means in this example I have given, actually the my current logical system is C11 CLNT, and that is 100 client. Okay, that is my current target system. Okay, the current system which I am using. Okay, that means from employee central, which value whatever value will be coming, to which EC payroll system it will be coming. Okay, so in this system, I have 100 clients, that is my EC payroll, and my logical system is C11. And where exactly you'll be configuring this logical system, the target system, that we'll be discussing in the whenever I'm discussing the OZO, ALE and IDOC, all those stuff. Okay, BD54 and BD64, all those transactions will be using there. Okay, so that at present is not required. So that I'll be telling you later on. But now just understand this is a target system means to which EC payroll system my data will be coming. Okay, so that actually will be putting here the target system. Then next one is there is another date you can see, which is very important, like FULL PR STDATE. So what is the meaning of it? Actually, this is called full transmission start date. Okay, so what is the significance of this date? So by meaning or by definition, it is the date from which we want our entire EC payroll, sorry, EC data to be replicated in our EC payroll system. Okay, so that is the meaning of this full transmission start date. Okay, so there are multiple things like you can put your go live date. Okay, it can be your, suppose if you want your historic info as well. Suppose you are in a situation like a mid-year go live. Okay, suppose you are having a financial year starting from January to December. Currently, you are in the month of June. Okay, and you like to have employees who are already from your January to till May to already implement it to replicate into EC payroll. Okay, so in those cases, you have to put this date as the 1st of January. It can be your go live date in case if it is a mid-year go live. Otherwise, if your go live date is matching with your financial year start date, it can be the same date. Okay, otherwise it can be also like 1/1/1900. Okay, so the default date we can put it here. Okay, so date which I was talking about. But in this scenario, as a best practice, I followed the same thing. Like my go live date was 1st of January 2020. Okay, so for that reason, I just put it here, 1st of January 2020. So this is the significance of this full transmission start date. Okay, so that means it returns the entry of an effective dated segment, okay, which is valid on a particular given date. Okay, so as I was mentioning, it is the date from which we want our EC data or employee data to be replicated in our EC payroll system. Okay, so it can be anything, but as per best practices, we always prefer go live date or from which we exactly we want our employee data to be replicated in our EC payroll system. Okay, so this is
just one question here, Niladri. Yeah,
yeah.
just remind me. I've forgotten this a bit. I
Mhm.
mean, this date is very crucial for replication, but uh, uh, let's say the same example which you gave,
Mhm.
January. I mean, we are going live in June, but
Mhm.
we want data effective January until June in ECP side. So we will
Mhm.
give the date as 1st January
Mhm.
2020,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And however, for our payroll processing, then all the other nitty gritties, we can have, that control record
Mhm.
set up accordingly, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
from the go live date, 1st
Mhm.
June onwards,
Mhm.
for processing the payroll.
Mhm.
However, let's say in EC, if we have employees who were hired few years ago, 2019, 2018. So if
Hmm.
we give the date as 1st January 2020, uh,
Hmm.
what effective data or hire date would come onto the ECP side?
Okay, so from a hiring date perspective, you are mentioning it, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you want, we can quickly put this example, park it for later, or if you
Hmm.
want, I can just give you this example in your Excel that in
Hmm.
EC, this is the data, and if we put this date, what will get replicated to ECP?
So actually, what I have seen in this project, so whatever whoever employee is already active employee, okay, on as on 1st of January, all of them actually getting replicated in my EC payroll system. So we have not considered anywhere the hiring date, but as you are mentioning, okay, so like whatever, even if the employee is an old employee, like who have been hired or who have been working for since say 4 5 years before my go live date. Okay, so all these employees are replicated. The one thing challenge I faced, just I will call out that people who have separated. Okay, so in that particular period, suppose in the month of January to May of 2020, people who have separated or they are no longer required to replicate it. In those cases, what we have done, like we have make a separate employee class for them. Okay, so like people who are so those employee will not be replicated in my ECP system. In that way, I handle two scenario. One is as I mentioned the hiring date. Actually, it doesn't depend upon your hiring date. People who are already active in the system in the EC
No,
as on
the question was not who will get replicated. That
hmm,
wasn't the question.
okay.
Question was in infotype 0, what
Hmm,
will be the start date after the replication has happened? So that's where I said I can give you quickly an example in Excel that these are the dates in EC. Uh,
hmm.
my question is which date will come in ECPY as
Okay,
a start date?
okay.
Are you
So,
getting my question or not? Or
no. Still, I'm not getting.
so,
Actually,
so
there are
just
two types of dates.
quickly open your Excel quickly,
Oh,
please. With Excel, it would be much more easier. We'll have a
yeah,
visual.
yes, yes. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, in column A, just write EC,
Okay,
leave column B empty, and in column C, write ECPY.
okay.
Yeah. So in EC, you would have a higher event, right?
Yeah.
So just say higher, and in
Hmm,
column B, have a date as, let's say, 01/01/2016.
okay.
All right. And now
Hmm.
this your full transmission date you have set in that variant or that query as
Very.
uh, 1st January 2020. I mean, don't put it here. Here we will
Okay.
have something
Huh.
else, but
Hmm.
have it somewhere so that we have it for a reference. Yeah,
Okay, okay. Full transmission date. I'll just put it first
yeah,
of January
2020.
2020. Okay.
Right. So this is your higher event effective date in EC. Now
Hmm.
higher action in info type 0 will get what date with this replication?
Okay. So higher date. So in ECPY, you mean to say, right, that during that replication, what date exactly it will be replicated?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I have done, I will tell you. But this scenario, actually, I need to come back. Okay. But
I mean,
here,
you can park it for later. I don't
okay.
want to get
uh,
deviated. I'll make a note in my diary. The
okay.
reason I'm saying is this is very crucial from replication point of view. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in payroll, you
Mm-hmm.
write lot of rules,
Hmm.
PCRs around hire date, info type 41, and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules around that. So
Hmm.
for that purpose, doesn't matter when you are going live. You can go live in June 2020, like our example. But that higher date or actual date is very important, because payroll, there are a lot of calculations around seniority, etc., etc.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
so that's where I just thought, let me ask you some twisted scenarios around full transmission date, how it will play out. For example, I mean, this is very evident if employee is hired on 1st February 2020, it will bring the data as an ECPY, right? ECPY
True.
will get, because that's not a problem. That's straightforward, because 1st February 2020 is greater than. But in this case, I don't remember. I knew it back then, but there were some challenges and some issues, and SAP also didn't do it properly in the first time. So there were, but finally it all got sorted. But I would like to know from you that because this is very crucial actually from payroll vantage point. It's very important. But get me an
Exactly.
answer later. I'm making a note
Sure.
in my diary, and we'll touch base with you on this later. And you can also make a note if you want.
I will. I'm just making a note. Just today's date I'm putting, and just to make a note of it. Okay. Generally, this is actually handled by my EC guy, so I will check just touch base with him how he has done. Because this scenario also we came across. It's not a very new thing. Okay. So I think they have mentioned some other date. With two dates they were mentioning somewhere. Okay, but I'm not sure exactly. So I'll be just touch base with him, and I will get back to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I mean, in your own time, and
Hmm.
if you can get me some more information also around this, that indeed
Hmm.
will be very helpful.
Yeah. Sure, sure, sure. I think there is a SAP note for this as well, which I can't
I
remember the
remember
exact.
there was some, I mean, great deal of detail, but now
Yeah,
that I'm trying to get back to the things, they are coming back, but not entirely. But
yeah,
if you can find me those details, I'll
sure,
bookmark them and keep it handy for future.
sure, definitely. I will do that definitely for you. Okay, so these things also ever changing, so I need to check the latest as well. So I will just
Yeah, because
definitely.
this is uh, very crucial for your data migration,
Mm,
initial go live. This is stuff is very important.
yeah, yes, very true. You're correct. But you understood this FDSD concept, right? This full
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
transmission
yeah, yeah,
concept of.
yeah, yeah. I've made a note in my diary.
Okay. Because this is one of the most important activity during a data migration, as you have mentioned. Okay, this date, and also there is an option here like use as from date. Okay, so that means all of your, there's a tick box as well. Okay, so if you're ticking this option, so it will, what it will do, returns all employees that satisfy all job or compensation conditions where it has been effective date is a respective to greater than or equal to that value. Okay, suppose you are mentioning and you're ticking that options use as from date, means from that particular date it will validate all of the information for the all those employees, all those filter. It means it will apply the filter for all of the individual employee as well, already job information, compensation conditions, so whatever the filter you have applied. Okay, so that you can tick use this as a uses from date. Okay, so that is
But
the
if it
concept.
is not ticked,
Hmm.
then what does it do?
If it is not ticked, then again you will be only specific employee details will be replicated. Not the, it will not consider those like it will not check employees specific filter. Okay, so like compensation pay group, employee class, it will not filter individual employee wise. It will just check employees fully transmission the specific date, and it will pull those details. But ideally, to I have seen it is people tick it, use as a from date if you're going for go live. Otherwise, what you can
Okay.
do, you just put it like, suppose if you want everything historical information also, everything you want. Okay, so in some projects also I have seen people put it as a 0101 1900. Okay, it means that is, and means it will pick up all the employee, means all of our whatever historical data you are having in the employee central. Okay, so in those cases you can use instead of this go live date, you can put 0101 1900. Okay, so it will pull all the employees data. So in those cases you can use, that is the concept here in the uses from date. And multiple actions, actually this is similar to your remember the additional actions in the on-premise days. Okay, it
Yeah,
is very similar.
that's fine. That's not a problem. Multiple actions, external cost centers. Uh,
So these are the
what's
different
yeah
thing. External cost center and notification means it will be just updating those replication, the monitoring at a replication monitor. It will update those trigger. Okay, so that is the concept here in this screen. Okay. The next one is the query segment, the second section which I was talking about. This is a query segment. So here exactly for individual employee replication, so what are the bare information you require? Okay, like minimum set is these five things, like person. These are different actually your portlets in your employee central, like compensation information, employment information, job information, personal
yeah
information, and person. So these five things are must. This is the minimum set of segments you need to you require for your this query segment. Inside this query segment, actually you will be putting it. So how SAP will understand this? Whenever this compound employee API will be actually start working, it will be included in your standard select clause in the select query from so and so table. Okay, so it will understand these are minimum requirements of segments. Okay, on the top of that, if anything additional thing is required, you can put it here, like in this query segment. Okay, so you can just put those related segments, and those are segments are readily available in the. You do not have to type it out. Rather, from the drop-down values, you have to select, and these are the list of segments which is supported by in your compound employee API at present. Okay, so you have to simply put it those values and maintain those sequence in this query segment. And accordingly, your compound employee API will be triggering. Okay, so this is the concept here in the list of compound employee query. Query here in this query segments. This is a simple one. Okay, any queries here?
no, this is
Okay.
good. This is fine.
Now, this is your high-level architecture view, which I was talking about. So here, although I have presented with a Boomi integration, so it will at present it is replaced by if you're using PTP, it will be replaced by your application program itself. Okay, so this is a high-level architecture with a middleware. I have given this example. So in the left-hand side, you are seeing there is your employee central. In the right-hand side, your EC payroll, that is your on-premise SCM. So we can see in the whenever employee information will be coming, the two types of objects. One will be your classic objects in your EC. Another is the latest one, all of your MDF objects. Okay. Irrespective of that, you will be having your employee compound API. Compound API. It will pull those data and it will be replicate through the replication process. Okay. So in case we are using replication program, it will be via those replication program. Otherwise, if you have used middleware like Boomi, Del Boomi and all, so it will be replicate those program. And in the right hand side, you can see in the those data will be replicated in the as an inbound service for employee master data. Okay, and accordingly, and depending upon those activities and all, whatever the logic, whatever filter you have applied, input type framework. Okay, so accordingly it will be just replicate. And again, once it is replication successful in the on-premise system or the EC payroll system, there will be a confirmation process. That means you have already this confirmation will be process will be coming, and it will be via your OData API. Okay, so from ECP to EC communication, it will be happening through this OData API as I was mentioning. Okay, so again, it will just update your data replication monitor inside your employee central. It will say this data have been successfully replicated, or this data has not been successfully. If some error is there, you can just check those errors and all. Okay. So those three API which I was talking about, SF API, OData API, employee compound API. SF API is no longer used mostly. Mostly this employee compound API and the OData API has been used at present. Okay. So this is the high level architecture diagram at for EC payroll. Okay, so whatever I've explained you here, just the same thing here in a separate. This is another diagram where exactly you are using say CPI, SAP Cloud Platform Integration, so this is actually the high level diagram for your if you're using SAP PI or SAP CPI. Okay, so same thing will happening replication inside that it will happening. Only thing is instead of Dell Boomi, you are using this cloud connector or SAP CPI and this thing this system. And regarding the process, as I was mentioned, same have been actually I have explained here how this replication will happening from where to where. Okay. So, but
Just one second. I wanted to read 321
okay,
slide very
okay.
quickly. So this is your that HCI, right? HANA Cloud Integration or CPI
HANA
Cloud
CSP
Platform.
or yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this one also uses Compound Employee API, right?
Yeah, yeah. Compound employee API is still relevant, so still they use. Yeah. So there is no change in that.
And we still don't know the answer of that question. Uh, why CPI? Why can't we use a P2P program in on-premise?
Okay, so that actually I'm still answering for means just reached out to few people, but they also do not know it. But let me check it some more experienced guy.
Since SAP PI sends a standard program given by SAP request for the data. So the program is different for CPI versus P2P, right? It's a different program.
Yes.
It's a different program, and SAP PI sends a request to SAP CPI, and CPI requests the data from SF Employee Central, and SAP CPI sends a response back to SAP PI via SAP Cloud Connector, and SAP PI sends the response to SAP on-premise, and SAP on-premise triggers a confirmation message. Okay, that's fine. We can move on.
Mechanism remains the same. Nothing is. Only thing is instead of Del Gumi, we're just replacing with no CPI thing. Okay. And same thing actually in the individual section wise also I have shown here, like what will happen to your cost center. Okay. So like from this integration with success factor employee central payroll, how the cost center application will happening. Okay. So the block diagram just I have given it here. Nothing difficult to understand. Like cost center, how it replicate. Okay. Same goes with your here like posting related documents. Okay, so posting related documents, how it will be replicating your S4 HANA cloud. Okay, because in the finance integration you required it. Okay, so in how this high level block diagram and maintain it, like after live posting is done, releasing the posting document, then
This integration happens via iDocs.
yes, you're correct. Because there are two different systems, right? If the payroll actually it is on your EHP7 or EHP8 system, your finance, if it is in your S4 HANA, mostly these days, as people use S4 HANA or Simple Finance, that will be your S4 HANA on-premise or it can be S4 HANA cloud. Okay. Again, that integration will be different, means the configuration will be different if you are using a private cloud or the public cloud. Okay, so that I'll be explaining in you more detail in the integration part whenever you are doing integration will explaining, but at a high level this is actually the diagram. Okay, so for the regarding the posting and all. And this is actually how the difference, what is the difference between your P2P and middleware. I just try to explain here. Okay, so whenever you are doing this P2P integration, it is actually replaced by your ABAP report, okay, instead of middleware. Okay, and actually your employee central API, it will send those requests to an HTTP client, and via the web services, as I was explaining yesterday, the web services are the call how the systems, each and every component will be interacting with each other. Okay, so they will be calling to each other and they will be processing those data internally. Okay, via a specific logical port. Okay, that is the concept in the mechanism which goes inside your PTP. Okay, another thing actually you'll be finding in the confirmation process, there is a terminology called O data offset. Okay, so this is not there in your other concept like your middleware or your Boomi you are using, but it will be unique to your PTP. Whenever you are working on a PTP P2 point-to-point application, the confirmation whether this is successfully completed or not. Okay, there will be a O data offset thing. Okay, it will say whether it has been properly triggered or properly it has been replicated or not. Okay, so that thing will be seen, and as I was mentioning, suppose if you are getting any error. Okay, so this is from a live implementation, the how if you are getting any error, how this O data offset error will be coming. Okay, so it will say HR integration means in this O data replication is failed for a so and so employee. In this example I have done it for one employee. Okay, so for that reason it is showing one employee. Otherwise if you have replicated for entire population, you'll be seeing a lot of error here. Okay, this is how a typical, if it is failed, if your point to point replication fails. Okay, So we'll be getting this kind of O data upsert error. It will say very specific, O data upsert failed for this employee. It is a communication error. That means your application is not successfully done, and there is a specific note for it. Okay, so you can follow. There are some mechanisms to how to handle that. It can be some configuration missing. Generally, if it is configuration issue, or if it is a support pack related issue, there are two kind of scenario. Okay, so if it is not, then you have to talk to your integration consultant. Okay, so they will be able to troubleshoot for you. But till this, you have to understand like how what kind of error will be getting and how to the initial checkup, like what you have to do, and then you have to contact with your integration consultant anyway, okay, for more details, for if your configuration is correct and all. Okay. So these are different troubleshooting tips from a live project. Okay. So other than that, let me go to the system and I will whatever explain to you, I will show you.
You mentioned some ALE IDOC configuration also for this P2P. Is that correct?
Point to point, but that is nothing much here. It requires just building a logical system here. Okay, but those details I'll be covering in another section. Wherever actually the step, what are the different? I'll be sending you one means I'll be sharing one checklist. Okay, so after this, the basic fundamental will be going to a checklist kind of thing. What are the things you have to check in your EC side, and what are the things that are in your ECP side? In that checklist, it is there. Okay, so there actually I'll be covering here. Nothing much here, like one you have to just one time activity you have to do there. Okay.
Okay, no problem. And yesterday you mentioned that you will share with me some